Hey, Leslie here at Cylon Rolling Acres. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit about how we outfit our Gator for grazing. So with our supplies and other gear that we use for rotationally grazing our goats and sheep. This is kind of our go-to farm mobile piece of equipment for helping us move fence and getting gear out around the farm, whether we're in our existing pastures, grazing brushy areas, or out in the woods. And don't mind the goats and sheep back here. They are grazing around the pond right now, and it's a little bit larger paddock. So what happens is that sometimes moms and babies get separated, and the babies, instead of going to find their moms, like to cry really loud, but they usually find each other, so it's not a big deal. So no worries about my background sound. So I'll show you what's here in our Gator. So we do use a XUV 865R. So this is actually a diesel Gator. And the reason why we prefer a diesel Gator is because we can use it to move our pasture shelters, and it has just a little bit more power than your standard gas UTV. So will have a longer life, but also has more power. All right, I'm putting in my earbuds because they're coming to check me out and they're a little noisier this morning. But I'm gonna share now what I've got in the back and what I use it for. So we'll just kind of start here and work our way around. So these racks are really nice. These are actually from John Deere. The problem with them though is that they've taken a little beating over the years since we've had them on here. So we used to hold some of our fences on here, but now we just put more lightweight gear on here. But they are handy. I just need to probably find some replacement parts. But we carry our Crook with us. This is my favorite Crook. It's a Kiwi Crook. We've got this from Premier Fencing. I think you can also find it on Amazon. This is so if we have to ever do any quick handling on pasture, the Crook, it helps you kind of walk up quickly and slowly and calmly towards the animal you want to work with. It is pretty handy, so you're not doing a lot of run around and chasing animals. Actually, this brush belongs back in the barn, but I found my other brushes. These I use to brush out our water tanks. We have seasonal water tanks that we have throughout our farm where we have groups of goats, and every once in a while they might need a little scrub to be cleaned out just from, we have well water, so a little bit of the hardness, get some of that out. Sometimes algae builds up just a little bit, so a scrub and a rinse usually does the trick. So back here, I have got clips for connecting our fences. So whether we use our smart fences or our electronet fences, a lot of times we'll need jumper cables to clip them to our existing pasture fence, or if we need to jump power from one fence to another, even if we're using portable energizer, whether it's solar or battery powered, these can be really handy for doing that. So I always have lots of these on hand. I keep them up top, otherwise they get pretty tangled. So back here, I've got a empty mineral bag, and I actually always keep one on hand back here because that's just my garbage bag. So if I find anything out around the farm, I will grab it, toss it. A lot of times I'm finding remnants of bale twine from bale grazing over winter. As much as I try to pick all of it up, it's just not always possible. So that's my garbage bag. Once it gets filled up, it gets thrown in the trash. Back here, I will have my fences. This is our smart fence. We really like using these a lot, especially in our existing pasture. Our group of goats is trained in pretty well, so there will be instances where we use our smart fence outside of our perimetered fence. Just a matter of where I feel like how comfortable I am with our herd, but we're really happy with this. Plus, it travels super great in the back of our Gator. We can stack a bunch of these in here. Unlike net fence, it gets a little bit more tangly. In the back here, I've also got a weed eater. You're probably thinking, that doesn't look like a weed eater. Well, this is kind of the arm hand powered weed eater. These are great for a quick chop of if you find burdock or some other undesirable species. And yes, sometimes my goats won't eat certain things. And even if they will eat them, I don't necessarily want them in certain species of plants in my pasture, so I can just do a quick whack. And a lot of times then I'll throw it just in the back of the Gator and I'll put it in our burn pile later. But this is pretty handy. My next item, this actually I don't really use as often anymore, but this is more of a winter Gator item, but this is a bale knife. So this is really handy. I usually carry a utility knife too, but this is nice and long because I can cut the strings and then I can take this side and pull them off. And when we've been transitioning into grazing, and then when we were a little dry before, sometimes I will use this when we feed hay, typically not in the summer, but sometimes it happens, especially when we've been in drought years. So I just keep this in here because sometimes it can be handy if we are in an instance where we do need to have hay or just for use. But this is when you know you hit the jackpot with your family, they give you pretty sweet grazing tools, farming tools for Christmas. So my next piece is, I have a tow strap, and I like to have a tow strap in the back because our pasture shelters that we use in our pasture, we have them on skids, and so we use the tow strap to drag them with the Gator, and so we just hook it around the hitch, and these go on the little there's like little places to hook them on the back of the shelters, and we can just pull them through to the next paddock. When the goats and sheep are in the woods and they've got brush cover, I'm not as concerned about them having or needing shelter this time of year, just because they've got cover from the sun out here, and then just enough cover for rain if it rains as well. Okay, I have a little container of chlorine tabs, pool tabs. Or in the summer, sometimes we'll start to get a little bit of algae buildup in our water tanks. We're moving our animals enough that like we dump out the water before as we move, but sometimes if we have a little bit of buildup, we'll put a tab in there to help just keep the algae growth from growing. It's kind of similar from the concept of if you have treated water, if you were in the city, depending on the size of tank, I may pound it into a smaller piece and just throw a small tab in there. But it keeps it nice and clean and clear, so the goats and sheep continue to drink the water. So this is just handy to have with me. Let's see what else I've got. I've got a mallet. So depending on, again, the season, so if we've got a dry year or it's midsummer and it tends to be more dry and I need a mallet to maybe tap in my net fence just a little bit. And I forget, when we're grazing off-grid outside of our existing pasture and we had to put grounding rods in, this guy's my best friend. I'm pretty happy with this one. The last one I had was just a traditional mallet with a wooden handle. It met its demise when I was putting in grounding rods last fall. I got this one like out of desperation at our local Ace Hardware. It's been awesome. I don't even know what brand it is, but I'm very happy with it. I have a small bucket and scoop in the back. So I used to carry dog food in here in a tub so we could feed our guardian dogs while we're out, and also mineral. But now that our herd is grown and I'm always going out and checking, I just found it easier to keep the dog food in the barn, and I will grab it on my way out to go check animals. So I'll use that for this. A lot of times I'll use this also for doing mineral. And also for mineral, we found that we will typically use a whole bag every time we refill and do our mineral feeders. So I don't necessarily need to carry it with me anymore. We'll just throw the bag in the back of the Gator. But depending on, if they've been out for a few days, I will often put part of the bag in here, dump it in, and then go back, refill, and do the same thing, just because they get a little crazy for the mineral if they've been out for just a little bit. And just on the safety side of me, I don't want them mobbing me while I'm refilling that mineral feeder. All right, I also have this flea and tick spray. We use this on our guardian dogs. And then sometimes some of my darker haired goats, I will spray it on them. It's kind of nice because it'll keep the flies off of them. One of our guardian dogs tends to get a lot of fly bites on her nose. I'll spray it on them probably every few days just to kind of keep that additional flies off of them, just for comfort. All right, next I'll move in to my toolbox. All right, here's my toolbox I have in the back. This is supposed to be waterproof. The seal came off last season, so it's not totally waterproof, but it does a pretty good job of keeping the rain out of here. So I'll kind of run through what I've got in here. I've got a lot of tools and other supplies. So I have this marking tape. I usually will use it along our permanent pastures to mark where our seasonal water line outlets are, so I don't have to kind of guess. Well, I know where they are, but I don't have to do a lot of investigating to find specifically where they are. When the grass is really tall during grazing season, it's also handy if there's somewhere where I need to do a fix on the line and maybe I need to come back to it later, or intern or my kids are out, or my husband, and I'll just have them tie a piece of that marking tape on there just as a reference point. Yellow is not bad. I prefer anything other like fluorescent pink and orange just because it stands out with green a little bit better. I have utility knives, because you know, you always need those. I've got some extra straps for that rack that I have up here. I need to do a little more repair work on. I have a pair of scissors. It's kind of a mix of like fencing and kid and lamb and goat sheep supplies. I've got some pliers. I've got a pipe cutter. Sometimes I will need to make cuts or splices on our seasonal water lines. I have this here if I need to troubleshoot that. I have some screwdrivers. Yes, they're pink. It's kind of a joke when I got them, but I found them to be handy in here because I'm less likely to forget them out in the pasture because they're not green and blend in. Because sometimes I need to readjust our floats. Let's see. Got some screws in here I threw in here because I didn't want to leave them out where they were at. Okay. Duct tape, because you always need duct tape. A few more straps for my rack. I have a little hand shears for clipping trees and brush. Obviously this is pretty small. Sometimes I do carry a larger tree clipper, but this season I really haven't had to. But if we've got in some areas of our pasture, we have some younger trees that are growing along the fence line. So if I need to do a snip on the tree branch, so it's not touching the high tensile hot wire, I've got this if I need to. This is probably more than I need, which tells me this is where the last spring when I was looking for halters during kidding season and I wasn't sure where they are, they're all in the back of my Gator. But I like to have these. I probably really need one or two in here, but if I need to grab a goat or a sheep pretty quick and just maybe check them or need to work with them, but a little bit more than just a quick look, it is handy to have a halter so I can either tie them up to the Gator or to a tree, so then we can safely work together to maybe assess what their health needs are, or if I need to check their fermentation scores or anything like that. Or if it's a new mom and I want to make sure babies are nursing, again, I've got tools to help me do that. This is another handy hay knife or twine knife. I keep one in here just because I always know it's in here. Let's see here. Some wire snips if I've got to do any work that's wire related. I've got a fencing splicer for some of our poly wire if we need it. Extra handle for my smart fence. Actually, this one right here I notice needs it. I'll put it on right now. And then I've got some vet wrap in this little container right here. Some more like water line supplies. So I've got some hose splicers. So our seasonal water line runs is black pipe, and so that's where the pipe cutter comes into hand from there. But then from our seasonal water line we run garden hose to our stock tanks, and so sometimes I might need to do a quick fix on those, so I have some of those in here. I have also some hose clamps. They're always handy. I'm not exactly sure why I have them in here. Maybe I took them off something and put them back in. I try not to accumulate too many extra things in here. I've got some extra hose washers, so you know your hose doesn't spray on you. Seems like more and more hoses or hose reels I get now that were made in China, they kind of forget the washer piece. This is an extra splice that we use for our seasonal water line. Most of our fittings are from Pasture, which is specifically for livestock watering systems, but I found that at Menards, like our local hardware store, they actually have splices for similar setup for landscape water lines, and so it's the same size as what we use for our water line, 3/4 inch. I have a number of these. I have more of them in my shop, but they have this long, so if I do need to fix and splice our water line together, I can do that pretty quickly. Got well-worn bottle of marking paint, so if I need to come back and check an animal or give medicine later, I can go back and easily find them. I've got some extra string from my net fences that where you tie them together at the posts. I threw them in here because I know these came off and I didn't want to lose them. I've got some all-purpose cream that is good for like abrasions, or if an animal gets like a small cutout on pasture, or maybe has something that's like minor cuts and bruises. I don't want to or need to like do any major like doctoring on. This is kind of a handy cream sometimes to use. I've got 2 wrenches, so if I need to do more work on the water line, it's nice to have one to hold it tight, and or the hoses and the reels to have one to hold it tight and the other one to move it. I've got fencing repair kits for my net fences. I also have this aerosol bandage, which is more of like on the fly for any like minor abrasions that I'm not going to wrap, but it's quick and easy for cleanup and just making sure that if they need it, animals need it, I can kind of like second skin or like, you know, a quick band-aid without having to use all the bandages, which actually is probably easier for them when they're out on pasture. I also have a flashlight as well, so that is what's in my toolbox here. Down here, in case you can't see it, but I got a little pocket down below. I'll just kind of point down, you can see it down there. I've got bug spray, because the ticks and mosquitoes do get bad depending on where I'm at. I've got some more marking spray, and then I carry sunscreen too. And then inside here, then here inside my glove compartment, or it's not really a glove compartment, but little spot here, I've got a fault finder. This is pretty handy to know if I need to do a quick test, or I'm having issues with fencing grounding, or wondering if it's where there's an error. I've got some other pens and pencils in here. I don't carry Altoids, but every good farm girl knows you need to carry extra hair ties, because you never know when yours might break. Down here, I've got some wasp spray, and then another little bungee cord, so if we have to pull our hoses for our water lines, I'll just use the bungee cord. Wasp spray is if there happens to be ground nests or nests in the trees. I'm very allergic to wasps, so I usually don't take care of that, but I kind of have it for backup. I do carry an EpiPen with me. All right, so the last piece is underneath the seat here. I do carry some paper towel if I need it. I have a couple extra hats. I've got a few extra keys. These go to connect our garden hose that goes to our watering tanks to our seasonal water line. I've got an extra little bendy tripod, so if I need to film or take photos on the fly. As you know, sharing what we do here in our farm is just part of what we do, so that kind of comes with the territory. Extra set of gloves, because sometimes I come out here and I don't have them. A pack of wipes. I don't even know if these are even dry. I'll have to throw these in the garbage. I sometimes throw these in here. These are leftovers. My kids have gotten bigger, but sometimes it's handy to have something to quick wipe off your hands. Also, with young kids, if they're out here with me, I've got, again, something to quick wipe them off. pair of gloves if there's something I need, or rubber gloves if there's something that's a little bit dirtier, or herd health stuff I got to take care of on the fly. I like having this in here. And then got some treats for the big dogs. I'll throw this away. That's kind of it for what we've got out here in our Gator. I do have a charger for my phone. That kind of covers it for what we use for, I have kind of stocked up for seasonal grazing. If we're hauling net fence, we'll usually put that in a trailer and move that around. Same with like our portable water will be in a trailer moving around too. So if you have any questions about anything, let me know. I'll try to also include a link below in the caption with all the stuff we use and where we got it. And I also include a post on my blog that has a little more detail on these items as well too. So have a great day.